Good evening, and welcome to Pigskin Isn't Just for Cooking podcast. I am not your commish with the dish, Adam Bullock. Our commissioner is a little under the weather. So I am going to attempt to do a solo podcast. I am Evan Forbes, Kissing Cousins, and yeah, this is going to be different because I don't have anybody to riff off of, and all of my opinions have to be my own. So we should have a lot of corrections for next week. Yeah, I am going to do this one solo. I did reach out to Kamish. Well, he had reached out to me saying him and Sophie were a little under the weather, so we had kind of put it off for a day, and then wasn't feeling as well today, so he was just said he'd be back for the playoff podcast, and I made sure he was cool with me doing it by myself, and he said go for it. So I sure am. We'll see how it goes. So without further ado, this will probably be like I've said before, it's either going to be the shortest episode or it's going to be the longest because nobody is here to cut me off at any point. So we'll see how this goes. We're not going to change anything. I'm not going to change anything. I am going to start with, well, we have no corrections as far as I've seen or heard on the message board. So I'm going to skip right over that sections. We had a perfect episode last week. Next, we will do our news segment, and I am going to play and listen to all these sound bites myself because I made them. I want to listen to them.
Who will the Patriots' number one receiver be this weekend? My brothers are fantasy warriors. We share our knowledge with one another. Whatever my brother knows, I know. And all of their knowledge will be mine. I'm gonna crush you guys this week.
Here's hoping. First on my list, I have Lamar Jackson has a sprained PCL, and as far as what it's saying yesterday and today, it is a very doubtful situation that he will play against the Steelers. Looks like on deck it is going to be Tyler Huntley, the backup quarterback, and he got picked up by Leon. Actually, and of course, Kamish isn't here to correct me. I don't know if he just recently got picked up after this news or if he's had Huntley waiting in the wings for a little bit, but I checked out Kamish's lineup before I started, and he is starting Huntley. He has taken old Bilson out, and he will be starting Huntley. So that is interesting, and we'll see how that plays out. I like it. I'm a big fan of that move. So it is a bummer for Mile High, especially considering the week we're in. This is it, fellas. This is week 14. This is do or die time. To toot my own horn because no one's going to stop me. I did solidify my place in the playoffs against Taco last week. Sorry, Johnny. So that means right now it's just Daskell, Dan, and myself have our guaranteed playoff spot. In the running, Raul, Chris Alex has sneaked his way up to 5th place right now. Mile High sitting at 6th. So this is a huge week for Mile High not to have one of his top scorers on his team. So that is a bummer. That being said, speaking of the Ravens, J.K. Dobbins is back. It's a Ravens running back. I think everybody is well aware of my opinions on him, so I'll just leave it at that. Next on my list, this is a tough one. Old Jimmy G has a broken foot and is likely out for the season. They will not put him on the IR, though. I don't know if that speaks to how they feel about him possibly coming back, but it does not look likely at the moment. Now, as far as I think I remember reading, it is not either it wasn't a major surgery or wasn't requiring major surgery. Either way, he's probably done, which is a fairly big shot to the 49ers because they've been on a tear recently. But next on deck is Brock Purdy, and he did get picked up by Johnny after that news just this past Wednesday. There were a few bids out on him. I had $1 out on him just because I was being that guy. I think Johnny ended up bidding $5, I want to say. So he did pick him up. And speaking of Johnny, that would make his 7th quarterback right now. Coming from a guy who always complains that there's nothing on the waiver wires. Well, it's like, you're kind of a part of the problem, right? I mean, am I wrong? You are. Now, granted, one of those quarterbacks is Matt Stafford on your injury report, which leads me into my next news, which is Matt Stafford does have a spinal cord contusion. But from what I saw, it should be an easy off season for him, is what the news reports. So it's not as serious as it could be, but I mean, it's not great. I mean, he's getting to that point where he is starting to be an older quarterback in the league. So yeah, not great. Again, especially coming from a Super Bowl defending champ. But we'll just see how it goes. Again, Johnny is on my news feed again because as we just saw, Baker Mayfield is signed to the Rams. That's and then it's huge, I think. And then we just saw him get to play this past Thursday, and I'll talk a little bit about that when we get to that segment. But yeah, that's big, I think. I don't know what that says for the team or for Baker Mayfield, but I guess we'll just have to see. They obviously won their game against the Raiders, which neither me or Commissioner saw coming. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. Moving along, Mark Ingram has an MCL tear, probably done for the season. He's a mile-high running back. All he was doing is getting in the way of Alvin Kamara. Whenever Alvin Kamara wasn't getting in the way of himself. It's been tough over there for New Orleans and their backs. But I guess that means Dwayne Johnson is now the backup behind Kamara, which he is on the waiver wires right now. He is still a free agent. If you're a Kamara owner, he might not be worth a stash. And oh, hey, that's me. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if it's worth it. Who knows? Moving on to questionables. Now, these are questionables that are still in our lineups. Starting with Dan, Amari Cooper is questionable, and most of these guys are actually probably likely to play, including Amari Cooper. The only one who is not is the next guy on my list, Saquon Barkley for Chris Alex, and his most recent update is he is a true game time decision. And I am playing Chris Alex this week. I would love the win. As far as put me in the playoff spots against people who I do and don't want to play in the playoffs. I definitely want to win against Chris Alex. So that's kind of good news for me, but I have a feeling Saquon's going to play, and I feel like he's going to have to play hard because I think they're playing Dallas this week. They're playing Philadelphia this week, so if he plays, it should be a decent game for him. Next up is Trevor Lawrence for Beetle. Beetle's back on the message boards. He's making moves. He just made his 5th move of the season the other day. Yeah, 5th move of the season. So good on him. He's winning games. He didn't win last week, but, he's still in it. He's still playing. DK Metcalf is the last questionable on my list for Daskell. And again, like these other guys, like Trevor Lawrence, he's probably going to play. It's a likely play, but he is still got that Q designation with him. And that's all I have for the news. There might be more, but you know what? I don't have it, so I'm not going to talk about that, which is going to bring me into our weekly report.
We're going to talk about the best of the best. Talk about my team. Guys, you nervous, excited?
I'm shocked. I'm bewildered.
I am a champion! Success in all endeavors.
I do like listening to those sound bites, but really, I just need that little break to take a drink because I'm getting super dry mouth doing all this talking, and it's only been 9 minutes. Stupid. Highest score this week, weekly report. Daskell, you did it again. This man has won $100 from highest score alone. He's got his money back and then some. That's crazy. 4th highest score of the season, 2nd in as many weeks. Highest score with 181.2. It was close. Dan was right behind him with 181.06. Just beat out Dan by 0.14. And then I was right there behind at 179. I was trying to make a Monday night push for highest score with Alvin Kamara, but as Johnny predicted, he only got 4 and some change points and just did nothing for me. But congratulations again to Daskell, highest score of the week. He's at number 1. He's got a bye week guaranteed. He's just crushing us this season. It's a goddamn bummer. Lowest score this week, womp womp. That's Beetle. Seen him a couple times on this list. Got on under 100 points. He only had 85.43. What's funny is, he played Mile High, who also did not score over 100 points. So just a tough matchup. Just nobody doing anything for him on their teams. Let's go on to the players of the week. The guys that were in our benches and did some work, starting at quarterback, that would be Jalen Hurts. Quarterback of the week, 47.65 points. Huge numbers. Jalen Hurts, I mean, if you've got old quarterbacks, which Chris Alex did, I mean, what a guy to replace him with, right? I mean, this dude's he's been on fire the last few weeks, and I don't see him slowing down anytime soon. Great pick by Chris. I don't know when he got him, if it was in our Dynasty actual draft, because off the top of my head, couldn't even tell you how long this cat's been in the league. Obviously, this is something that the commish would know just right off the top of his head. But, like I said, I'm doing it by myself. I don't have that little downtime to look at my phone, although I just did, and he's in his third year, so he probably picked him up in our actual Dynasty draft. Running back of the week, one of Daskell's, again, another Chris Alex guy, Christian McCaffrey, had 24.6 last week. He's having a good time over in San Francisco. He's doing well out there. The weather is doing wonders for him. Not that LA was any worse. Yeah, Chris Alex having the top two scores, quarterback and running back, is one of the reasons why he beat a commish by as much as he did. So there you go, commish. You didn't lose by only a touchdown this past week. So you should be happy for that. Very happy for that. Wide receiver of the week is again Davante Adams for Daskell, scoring 41.7. Gross. Just a monster wide receiver. This is his second week. This isn't Davante Adams' second week in a row as receiver of the week, but this is Daskell's second week in a row with starting the receiver of the week. Last week it was Christian Watson. This week it's Davante Adams. It's been Davante Adams a couple of times. He's having a very good year over there in Las Vegas. They just need to start, winning more games. They need to be better than they are, because they are better than they are, right? Yeah, they are. Next up, tight end of the week, that'd be Noah Fant for Johnny, scoring a 14.2. It's solid. That just kind of tells me it was a lower week for tight ends. Tight ends have been kind of iffy the past, 6 weeks. I mean, I know somebody will argue and say they've always been iffy, but I don't know. I feel like the past, 4, 5, 6 weeks, it's been tough, if you don't have Mark Andrews or Travis Kelce. So yeah. And then last, let's go to defense of the week. Those were my guys. I had the Cleveland Browns scoring 46.52. Oh, that's huge. That was because of their 3 defensive touchdowns. I didn't even believe when Adam said that had happened at Bunnies, because they scored their third one and he's like, oh, they have 3 touchdowns. I'm like, no, they don't. And then I looked, and then yes, they did. So that is also my second week with having the defense of the week. Last week it was the Dolphins. Let's move on to the bench warmers of the week. These are the guys that we did not start, but we might have, should have. Starting with me again, I left Justin Fields on the bench, and he was sitting there with 38.26 points. And it is unfortunate that I am not doing this with commish, because this is the point in the episode where I would have handed the commish $5, because I was so cocky that I was like, both Burrow and Herbert are going to outscore Fields, no problem. And neither one did. So, I didn't call that one right. That was tough. But, I feel like I can never play Fields when he blows up. All the weeks he does fantastic, he does so on my bench. So I got to figure something out. Running back on the bench of the week, Isaiah Pacheco? I don't know. It's Daskell's guy again. Scoring 26.8 points on his bench. And this is the second time in 2 weeks that Daskell has had a running back bench warmer. Last week it was Miles Sanders, and this week is Pacheco. I don't know what that means, but there you go. Wide receiver on the bench, Donovan Peoples-Jones, sitting on Commish's bench with 24.5 points. And, you guys probably listened to last week's episode. What did we talk about? We talked about starting him. Oh, now I really wish Leon was here, because I would just lay into him so bad. Because, again, I could have been wrong easily. But, if I was, I wouldn't have brought it up. But since I'm not wrong, yeah, I would have talked about it. And I would have wanted credit. Unbelievable. That's tough, though. It was tough. It was a tough play we had talked about. You really couldn't have seen that coming, but we kind of did talk about that coming. So I don't know. What are you going to do? Tight end bench warmer of the week. K. Dotton, I want to say. Yeah, K. Dotton for Daskell, scoring 14.8. That kind of tells you, again, your bench warmer of the week for tight end was 14.8, and the starter of the week was 14.2. That tells you all you need to know about what tight ends did last week, which was next to nothing. Last but not least, the defense bench warmer of the week was our commissioner's Philadelphia Eagles, sitting on his bench with 29.98 points. Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you, but I can now because I'm looking it up. He opted to play the Minnesota Vikings instead of his Eagles, and unfortunately, that cost him some points. Vikings only got 7 against their barely eking out a win against the Jets. Yeah, they allowed the Jets 22 points, so they did not have a very good outing. But that was our players of the week, our weekly report. So that means we are going, I am going in to, I'm going with you guys, the collective we. We all are going into our week 13. It's 13. I said 14, but it's supposed to be 13. Matchup review.
You're down by 7 with 4 minutes to go.
I'm going to be lucky if I get a point out of these donkeys. Oh my God, there was a sack.
That's a point.
And a fumble.
That's another point.
Oh my God, they're running it back.
No!
That's 6 points. That was an 8-point play.
Are you kidding me? Am I seriously gonna lose to Taco? Come on.
Oh, I shouldn't have played it. I shouldn't have played that soundbite because I did not lose to Taco. Sorry, buddy. But I like it anyway, so we're going to keep it in. This podcast is running pretty quick. We are not even barely scratching the surface of how long these things usually are, because apparently I'm just flying through this. So typically, me and Kamish, we just kind of run through the scores of all the matchups. I'm going to go back. I'm reverting to what we used to do, and I'm just going to take a look at all these matchups, and I'm just going to talk about the things that jump out at me about what happened last week. So first, we're going to talk about the Daskell-Melvin matchup. Daskell was our highest score. He beat Melvin 181.2 to 154.39. Melvin, most of us were pulling for you. I think probably 9/10 of us were pulling for you, but just didn't happen last week. Mike White, though, he did not have a terrible day. He scored more than his projection. He was projected 17. He got 28. You got to be happy at that. I see when I look at this. He had 31 out of 57 completions. That 57 attempt, that's huge. That's a big number. Now, you are playing against the Minnesota Vikings. I'll be honest with you, I didn't watch the game, so I'm not really sure how the game script was. But just looking at the numbers, it looks to me like it was kind of a shootout. So that is a reason why you would have to throw the ball 57 times. He did make one of those completions for over 40. Now, you throw that many times, you're going to have a flub here and there. He did have 2 interceptions, but, he threw for a touchdown. He ran for a touchdown. Is that right? 3 carries, 7 yards, and 1 touchdown? He did. He ran for a touchdown. He threw the ball 57 times, and he completed 31 of them. You add one passing touchdown on there, and you're looking at a 35-point day, which is solid coming from, a fairly, new quarterback, new starting quarterback, I should say, Mike White. We've been through a couple this season in New York already. Other than that, Christian Kirk, he's still kind of doing his thing. 13.4, didn't score his projected 15. A.J. Brown, though, he had a heck of a day. Probably would have had receiver of the week if Devontae Adams hadn't gone gangbusters. A.J. Brown scored 35.9. Had 119 yards, 2 touchdowns, and one of those touchdowns was over 40 yards. 8 out of 10 receptions. Huge. Absolutely huge. Other than that, DeAndre Carter, he, underproduced. Or I'm sorry, he got right what he was supposed to. He was projected 13.8. He got 13.10, pretty much what you expect. DeAndre Swift, respectable 19.10 out of his 10 projected. And then Aaron Rodgers is being Aaron Rodgers this season. Underprojecting, he's just not the same guy. And I don't know if that speaks to his attitude in Green Bay or if it speaks to his age. Couldn't tell you. This is 18th year in the league. He is 39 going on 50. I don't know. But I'm glad I don't have Aaron Rodgers on my team. Moving on to Daskell. Patrick Mahomes didn't have a super Patrick Mahomes day. Only got 23 out of his 32 projected. He did throw for a touchdown. He did run for a touchdown. He had a 40-yard completion. He threw for 223. He got hit a couple times. But he had a throwing and a running touchdown on the day. But still, underprojected for him. The big hit was Kenneth Walker for Daskell, only scoring 3 out of projected 17. But then if you got a guy like Devontae Adams scoring 41, he's making up for almost 3 players at that point. And then other than that, Christian Watson, besides A.J. Brown, probably one of the other highest scores of the week, 30.9 out of his projected 10. Christian Watson has been a really good pickup. Really, really good pickup. I guess he's the new favorite in Green Bay. Looking back at the past 4 weeks, starting from last week going back, it's 30.9, 27, 19.10, and then 38.7. And then you're down to like your 3s and 1s before he was even on the radar for Rodgers. So looks like he's got one guy that he's going to start going to, and it's him. DK Metcalf, 24.7 for Daskell out of his projected 13, 127 yards. One of those receptions was over 40. Scored a touchdown. He had 8 out of 8 receptions. We like to call that a perfect day. Didn't drop a ball. And, is one of the reasons Daskell won that game. And the last one is Geno Smith. 28 points out of his 25. Just really solid. Just a really solid guy. Which is good because Daskell has 2 quarterbacks right now. So it's a good thing they're both decent. Let's go on to the Dan and Raul matchup. Dan beat Raul 181.06 to 151.75. And Dan, everyone around the league says thank you. Thank you, thank you. Didn't need the win. Still guaranteed playoff spot. But that's what happens when you've got 5-6 people from one team, and that team is decent this year. Going through the matchup, Josh Allen underprojected by 10, only scoring 20 out of his 30. Had a fumble. He did throw for 2 touchdowns and 223, but he got hit a couple of times, so that brought his points down. Sam Perrine overscoring 18 and a half out of his 16. Ran for over 106 yards. Had 21 carries. Huge. It's nice that when a guy like Joe Mixon has to take a week off, you have a guy like Sam Perrine to step in and just not miss a beat. Just whatsoever. Devin Singletary, he scored what he was supposed to. Jefferson underscored a little bit, only had 15, only had 45 yards. He did have a touchdown. That was his saving grace for the day. A.J. Dillon, 19-4. Raul ended up starting both A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, and I don't know if he got a call, if he got some sort of insider information, because Aaron Jones left the game. And it's like, oh my God, horrible for Raul. And then you check his lineup, it's like, oh, he started A.J. Dillon. Okay, I guess. I'm not sure. Wild. But I'd say it ended up working out for him, but he lost the matchup, so it didn't work out that well. But A.J. Dillon scoring 19 points, stepping in when Aaron Jones did come back to the game, but stepping in, taking over while his guy was injured. Then Marcus Mariota, only 13 out of his 21. He threw for 167. He only completed 13 for 24. He had a touchdown, but, had an interception. He had a sack. Yeah, tough. But then his San Francisco 49ers, they did put up a solid showing for the defense, scoring 27 points, 3 interceptions, 3 sacks, a fumble recovery, and a touchdown. I mean, that's San Francisco defense for you. On the other side of that, the winner for this matchup was Dan Cook. Dak Prescott only scored 21.8, but he wasn't I don't think Dak Prescott is the reason Dan is winning games. It's because of guys like Nick Chubb, Josh Jacobs, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Tony Pollard. These are the guys that are winning Dan games, and the Cowboys defense. Dak Prescott, he only threw for 170. He did throw 3 touchdowns, 20 out of 30 completions, not too bad, but just wasn't a crazy day for Dak Prescott. Nick Chubb was surprising though, only scoring 8 points out of his projected 18. He did have 17 carries. He only ran for 80 yards, but the reason this is because the Browns defense was doing all of the offense during that game. Of the 27 points that Cleveland scored, the defense scored 21 of them. So, Chubb wasn't really needed that much. Josh Jacobs had another Josh Jacobs day, 20 points. He does have a questionable tag. Last night, I think I don't know if he got hurt later in the game, because he had, another awesome night. Or not last night, I'm sorry. This is Saturday, so it was 2 nights ago on Thursday. But right now he has a questionable tag for next week, which I'd be a little nervous about if I was Dan. I mean, this is one of the guys that you kind of rode into the playoffs on, but I don't think it should be too serious. X-rays came back negative for his pinky finger, so fingers crossed, except for the pinky, Josh Jacobs will be fine, because he scored, like I said, 20 points against the Chargers in Week 13, 26 carries, 144 yards, 2 out of 2 receptions. He had a running touchdown. He did have a fumble. That will happen, but they still won the game, which is what they should have done last week. CeeDee Lamb, 17.9 out of his projected 16. He had a touchdown, 71 yards. He had a couple carries for 23 yards. Again, another Dallas player on Dan's team, who is one of the reasons why he's doing so well. Amari Cooper kind of had a down game, only scoring 6 points out of his projected 14. But again, that's because the Cleveland defense was doing most of the work that game. And then the other big player on Dan's team would be Tony Pollard. Scoring 23.6, even with Zeke back. Tony Pollard is still getting those reps. He had 12 carries for 91 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns, 2 out of 3 receptions for 15 yards. Tony Pollard is a guy to have, even though Zeke is still, as far as I know, Zeke is still number 1, right? I guess. But Tony Pollard is obviously not going anywhere. And then Tua scored 33 out of his 24, even against San Francisco. Still had a pretty solid day. 3 for 295, had 2 touchdowns. He did have 2 interceptions, but 2 of those touchdowns were for over 40 yards. So that is the reason why he saved his day, because he did fumble the ball and have 3 sacks. 2 was banged up a little bit, but didn't affect his points for Dan. And then last but definitely not least for his team, the Cowboys had 32.56 points. 3 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries, a touchdown, a forced fumble. They do it all. They're, I think, one of the best defenses in the league right now as far as points allowed. I want to say they're like number 3. San Francisco is the best defense as far as not allowing points scored on them, with 190 scored this season. And then you're looking at Denver at 204. And then Dallas at 206. So 3rd best defense in the league for a reason. Moving on to my matchup against Johnny. I'll be quick. I'll go fairly easy on you, bud. I did beat him 179.31 to 161.6. It was a nail biter. I will say that. I really wasn't sure I was going to pull through. Even because that Cleveland game, right? That 46 points on Cleveland was a noon game, and I still was pretty nervous by the 3:00 games that I just wasn't gonna pull it out. Joe Burrow ended up helping me out a lot, scoring 37 out of his projected 29, 286 yards, 2 touchdowns, a completion for over 40, and then he ran 11 times. He had 46 yards and a touchdown. Ran around the field 11 times. Thank God, because like we just talked about, Kamara did nothing for me, only scoring 4 out of his projected 14. Horrible. Ugh. Alvin Kamara is the most frustrating player on my team, hands down. It's like no contest. He's the most frustrating player because, like, you have to start him, right? Because if you don't, you're going to look like an idiot when he puts 30 points on your bench, because who the hell benches Alvin Kamara? It's so frustrating. Ramondre Stevenson, he only scored me 10 points out of his projected 16. Wasn't the best, but Scary Terry McLaurin came through against the Giants, tying that game, going into overtime and doing nothing with it, scoring 20 points out of his projected 12. Terry McLaurin, I'm glad he has shown back up. I'm glad the Commanders got whatever figured out they had to figure out, and I'm glad he is the guy that he was supposed to be. Because he is. He's a very good player. It's just I feel like it was the end of last year, and then, after his, couple big games in the beginning of the year, he's kind of quieted down a little bit, and it's very disconcerting, but I'm glad that he's a pretty dependable starter week in, week out, and hopefully through the playoffs. After that, Jalen Waddle had a big old 1.4, did nothing for me. Gerald Everett, my tight end, 13 out of his projected 9. That was I knew it was going to be a kind of a shootout game against Vegas, and I was nervous about Keenan Allen being back in, but they've lost Robinson. I'm glad he came out and scored some points for me. Darius Slayton, the guy who I put in at the 11th hour. I took out Brian Robinson, and I was pretty sure I was going to be all upset at myself for doing that, and Kamish was giving me a hard time for doing that. But yeah, 11th hour, right before the game started, like 3 minutes before the kickoffs happened, I threw in Darius Slayton, and he ended up getting 14 points out of his projected 11. 6 out of 8 receptions for 90 yards, and one of those catches was for over 40. Pierce on my team, unprojected. He's been having a rough few weeks over in Houston. It's hard to get anything going on your ground game when your offense is just horrible offense. So it's tough, and you're in tough game scripts when you're losing every single game quickly, it seems like, and it's hard to depend on Pierce right now. Herbert underprojected, 20 out of 28, and then my Browns, like I talked about, 3 touchdowns, 2 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, 2 interceptions, only letting the Texans score 12 points. Johnny Kirk Cousins didn't have a great day, scoring 15 out of 25. He threw for 173, 1 touchdown, had a couple of sacks. But they still got the win. Minnesota is still number 1 in our division, so he should still be good going forward for the playoffs if Johnny makes them. Good luck, buddy. Najee Harris on a project a little bit, only getting 9.7. The real bummer is this Jeff Wilson, man, sitting on your starting running back with 0.3. That's tough. That is tough. It's almost as bad as a 0, which I'm experiencing this week already. But he was supposed to get 11, only got 0.3, 1 carry. He only had 1 carry the whole game, and maybe he got, I don't know if he got hurt. I don't know what happened that game, but he got 1 carry for 3 yards, and he had 0 out of 2 receptions, like the opposite of a perfect day. Tyreek Hill, though, fastest man alive, or in the league at least, 33.1 out of his projected 19.52. 9 out of 14 receptions, 146 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 over 40 touchdown. He's a good player. There's one thing Johnny does not lack in is talented receivers. He's got that on lock. Next up, another one is Stephon Diggs, scoring 18.7. 92 yards, touchdown, just a solid receiver for Josh Allen, a solid starting receiver week to week. Noah Fant, we talked about, was the tight end of the week. He scored his 14.2 out of his only projected 6, so more than doubled his projection. Good on you. Jamar Chase is being Jamar Chase. He scored 15 points. He was one of the reasons why the Bengals ended up, I'm going to say, upsetting the Chiefs, right? The Chiefs probably should have won that game, but they didn't, so I'll call it an upset. 7 out of 8 receptions, 97 yards. Didn't score a touchdown, but the reason he got so many points is because he had a plus 40 reception. Those nice, juicy extra points for those plus 40s makes all the difference. I mean, you throw a touchdown on there, he's scoring 23 points, but what are you going to do? And then Garrett Wilson scoring 22.2 out of his projected 11-4. Again, doubling his projection. He even tried to throw the ball once. He didn't do it well. He didn't complete it, but he did have 8 out of 15 receptions for 162 yards and one reception over 40. Did not have a touchdown on the day. Now, Johnny didn't lose by a touchdown, but he's right there. Johnny, he's got good receivers. Taylor Heineke, he's a Washington quarterback. 19.35 out of his projected 18. He threw to my guy a little bit, McLaurin, and got me some points, so I'll take it. He did throw 275 yards. He attempted 41 throws, only got 27 of them, but 2 touchdowns. He just got hit 5 times, 5 sacks. That's hard. That is hard, but the game ended in a tie, so all that for a tie. 2 more matchups to go. Next on deck, we've got Chris Alex beating our commish with the dish, Adam Bullock, 164.03 to 124.56. I was really pulling for you, commish. I really was. I was hoping you were going to get this win, but I guess it just wasn't in the cards. This does pull you down to a 5-game losing streak now. Sorry. I had to throw it in there. Daniel Jones, underprojecting a little bit, only 21 out of his 22, 200 yards. He didn't have a touchdown. He did have an over 40 completion, but he got hit 4 times. Both quarterbacks during that game, Heineke and Jones, 9 sacks between them. Whew, that's tough. That is tough. Dalvin Cook, 15.3 out of his 17, underprojected just a bit. Still had 20 carries, 86 yards. He did, but every time he caught the ball, he just didn't know which way to go. He had 2 out of 3 receptions for -3 yards. But he did have a touchdown, so saved the day for that. Montgomery got right what he was supposed to, 14.7 out of 14. He had a touchdown on the day, 14 carries for 61, and he did some air work. He had a 4 out of 5 receptions. He only got 6 yards out of them, but they're attempting it. They're testing the waters, I guess. Ayuk, 7 out of 12 projected, did not have a fantastic day. 5 out of 9 receptions for 46, not great. Tyler Lockett, though, had a pretty solid outing, 23.3 out of his projected 12, had 128 yards in the air with a touchdown out of 9 out of 12 receptions, sorry. That's one of the reasons Geno's doing so good is because he's got solid receivers over there. I mean, you've got DK, you've got Tyler, you've got Marquise when he's healthy. Noah Fant was, like I said, tied into that week. So, the Seahawks starting to put something together a little bit. Hawkinson, unfortunately, did not have a stellar game. Only getting 7 out of his projected 12 for Minnesota. Only 33 yards. Hopefully that does not continue because he went over to Minnesota for a reason, and hopefully we'll start seeing that the next few weeks. Other than that, Russell Wilson, I think that's a good call benching him this week. He only got 13 out of his projected 23 last week. They did put up a show, I guess. I mean, the defense did. The defense put a show against Baltimore. They barely lost by 1 point against Baltimore, which I expected wasn't going to be that close. Rusty, I don't know, man. That's a tough quarterback to have right now. Moving over to Chris Alex's side, Jalen Hurts was Jalen Hurts, 47. That's 380 yards, 29 out of 39 completions, 3 touchdowns. Woof. One of those touchdowns over 40. And then he had 5 carries with another touchdown. That's one of the reasons why the Eagles are sitting where they are this year. Christian McCaffrey, we already talked about again, was our running back of the week. Saquon Barkley scored 16-6 last week against Washington, 18 carries for 63 yards and a touchdown, plus 5 out of 5 receptions. Perfect day on that. The bummer is that, Chris Alex had a big goose egg sitting in one of his receiver spots. Cortland Sutton had 0 on the day, 0 for 1 receptions, but still eked out a win against our commish. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, my God. Oh, I've been going down the list, and I just came across another goose egg. God damn it. So I forgot that Dawson Knox also did not score any points. God damn it. He also did not score any points. Also was 0 for 1 receptions. So, yeah, like we've seen it happen, right? It's happened before. Daskell has got 2 goose eggs and still got a highest score. And obviously, if you get a highest score, you're going to get the win. But goddamn, does it suck when it happens? I'm sorry. I honestly did not even set that up, but that was a happy, like you say, it was a happy accident. It was just a happy accident scrolling on down the matchup. Keenan Allen, 17 out of his projected 12. When he's healthy, he's a good player. So, it's Keenan Allen. 6 out of 14 receptions though. That's I don't know what that means. You got less than half of your attempts, but I don't know. Maybe he's just kind of coming back into it. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, I got to play Chris Alex this week. I would really love to not have to play Chris Alex again during the playoffs. So, other than that, Ezekiel Elliott, he got the 16 points. Tony Pollard outscored him this week. Ezekiel Elliott, he still had 17 carries for 77 yards and a touchdown and 3 out of 3 receptions for 14 yards. So they're not shelving Zeke. You wouldn't. That would be a dumb thing to do. You just got 2 really good running backs in Dallas right now. Tom Brady, 26 out of his 26. Did what he was supposed to do. 281 yards. He still threw the ball 54 goddamn times. So, obviously he's not slowing down with age. Maybe he's just getting less accurate. 36 out of 54. He did have 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. They still won the game. They beat New Orleans by a point. He's just not the Tom Brady we used to know and maybe love. I never did. Finally, this should be quick. Mile High did beat Beetle 98.78 to 85.43. So not a lot of big players in this matchup. Let's see. Anybody over 10 points? Trevor Lawrence did it, 18.6. Lamar Jackson got injured early. He only had 0.9 for Mile High. Beetle had a 0 in his running back for Ngawu. No, that's Kini. You know what? I'm not even attempt to pronounce the last name because I'm not going to get it right. And I just don't want to sound stupid. So I'm not going to do it. He had a goose egg on Beetle's team. Jonathan Taylor had 11, super underprojected. That he went against a tough Dallas defense. Pickens, 0.7. Marquez Valdez-Scantling had 10.1 against Cincy for KC. He had a plus 40 reception, but he only had 2 of them. I'm sorry, not 2 plus 40 receptions. He only had 2 receptions, and one of them was for over 40. So, let's see. More people over 10 points. We've got Chris Godwin. He scored 10.3. Barely made my cut. Only had 63 yards. And then his defense scored over 10. But, they should. Colts scored 12 points. For Mile High, again, like I said, Lamar Jackson was 0.09. Austin Eckler only eked out over 10 by 0.7. So he had 10.7 with 10 carries, 35 yards. Did have 5 out of 6 receptions for 67. But, he's, scored half of what he was supposed to. He was projected to score 20. Didn't even, he barely got half. Let's see. Over 10 points. Amon-Ra St. Brown had over 10 points. He had a lot over 10 points. He had 29.1 points for Detroit. It's because they blew up against Jacksonville. They won 40-14 that game. St. Brown had a carry for 2 yards, but then he had 11 out of 12 receptions, almost a perfect day, for 114 yards and 2 touchdowns. Huge. But then other than that, Jared Goff was the only other person to score over 10 points for Mile High, and he had a 29.35. And again, that was because Detroit went off on the Jaguars. So that's it. I think I took up a little bit more time. I gave Melvin his stat dump that he's been missing the past few weeks. I know he likes listening to all these numbers and all that, but we just ain't got the goddamn time for it, buddy. But this week I did, so you're welcome. Christmas came early. I am going to take a break, though, just like me and Kamish do. I'm going to wet my whistle a little bit and get ready for our next section, where I talk about what happened this past Thursday, and we'll talk about Week 14. So we'll see you in just a minute. And welcome back. Thank you for joining me after the break. It's still just me, kissing cousins, flying solo. So I think I mentioned earlier, today is Saturday the 10th. We are in week 14. We just had this past Thursday the Las Vegas Raiders and the Los Angeles Rams. Now, me and Kamish both very easily picked the Raiders to win this game. I mean, right? I mean, that's what would have made sense. I mean, the Raiders did just beat the Chargers. Yeah, they should have easily won against the Rams, who were going downhill. They just got, Baker Mayfield, but he's only been there, a couple of days? So this should have been an easy win, but it wasn't. Baker Mayfield came in and, I don't know, after the first few drives or something. I apologize for someone who does a fantasy football podcast. I watch surprisingly little amount of football except for Sundays. So, and the occasional Monday night game. But, yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch it. But from everything I've read and the little clips I've seen, Baker Mayfield came in and led the team to a comeback win. They were down 10-16 with 10 minutes left to go or something like that. And he just went down the field and won the game. I think one of his first passes was a huge 20-yarder to Jefferson, Van Jefferson. So I don't know, Baker Mayfield with the Rams could be a game changer for them, but let's still remember it is still Baker Mayfield. And I only say that just to say that he's inconsistent. I mean, I think we've all known that for at least the past few years now. So, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. He's only been there a couple days. I guess his rapport can only get better with the team. Hopefully. I don't know. But like I said, the Rams did beat the Raiders. Baker Mayfield, he had 230 yards in the air and a touchdown. He did get sacked 4 times, which is a little concerning. You want your brand new quarterback to have confidence in his O-line, but we'll see going forward. Other than that, bigger players for the game. Ben Skowronek. He's a second-year receiver that I picked up a few weeks ago. I didn't start him. He scored 12.4 out of his projected 6.8. I picked him up when they were having some receiver issues, and I'm just not sure when the right time to start him is. He did have 7 out of 8 receptions for 89 yards, so we will see going forward. Van Jefferson, like I mentioned, when Baker Mayfield came in his second or third drive, whatever, I think one of his very first passes was to this cat. He ended up scoring 11.4 on Daskell's bench. No, actually, I want to say, no, Daskell did not start him. He wasn't on his bench. Daskell did start Tyler Higbee, though, who only scored him 3.1 out of his projected 7.23. So, underprojected for him. On the other side of the ball, speaking of underprojecting, Derek Carr only got 7.3 out of his projected 23. Thankfully, he was on Beatles' bench, so didn't really affect him. Josh Jacobs was Josh Jacobs. He scored 18 out of his projected 17, 27 carries, 99 yards, and a touchdown, 2 out of 2 receptions for 15 yards. Again, I'm not sure if that questionable tag got put on at the end of the game or maybe late in the game, but hopefully everything's okay. I think, like I said, x-rays, I think came back negative. So fingers crossed for that. Dan really would like that guy healthy for the next few weeks here. Devontae Adams underprojected for Daskell, and again another starter who underprojected for him. 3 out of 7 receptions for 71 yards, only scoring 8.6 out of his projected 18. So for the week, Mile High is now ahead a little bit for the projected win, only by a little bit. And we all know how those things go, so we'll see. Other than that, not a whole lot of other big players. I will mention, I'll throw it in, I did start Foster Moreau as a flex play, a dart throw. We do have 6 teams on bye, so a lot of people are doing dart throws this week, I would imagine. But he scored me nothing. 0 out of 1 receptions for a big old fat goose egg. So I'm not starting off very good against Chris Alex this week, but we will see. That was Thursday's game. Let's go on to the predictions for the rest of Week 14. The teams that are on a bye, I mentioned before, there are 6 of them this week. The Falcons, the Bears, the Packers, Colts, Saints, and Commanders. There's a lot of big players on almost every single one of those teams. So this was, I think, one of the tougher weeks we've had. I think I want to say Week 10, I think, was a pretty... Week 9 was another pretty huge week. That was another 6-team bye week in Week 9. So that being said, this week I believe the commish was supposed to pick on the spot, and I was supposed to have mine written down. Like I said, I did talk to the commish about doing the podcast solo, and after he gave me the green light, the A-OK, because I would never dream of doing this by myself without getting the go-ahead from Boss Man. So after he said go ahead, I asked him for his picks, and he sent them to me, and I haven't looked at them, actually. He sent me the text message. I saw them. I saw something about a highest game, but that was it. So I am actually pulling up the text message right now, and I have mine written down. Mine are locked in. So I will read his first, and then I guess I will read mine. So we talked about we both picked Vegas on Thursday. We both lost. So the first noon game we're going to talk about is the New York Jets at Buffalo. Kamish is picking Buffalo. Not a surprise there because I am also picking Buffalo. The Jets have, been putting on some good games. I'm not going to lie on that. They're scoring points. They're not at the bottom of, point totals for the league as far as teams. So, they can win games. I just don't think they're going to win against Buffalo. But I would love to be wrong. I would absolutely love for the Jets to, for Mike White to come on and just put on a clinic in Buffalo. But I don't think it's going to happen. So I am also picking Buffalo. Next up, we have Cleveland Browns at the Cincinnati Bengals, and Kamish has picked the Browns. Whoa, okay. I'm not. I'm picking Cincinnati, but I like where his head's at. I think he's probably hoping Deshaun Watson is going to come out and make up for what happened last week. Again, whose fault was it, right? For last week. I blame everything on the Browns defense. I mean, the Browns defense did most of the work. So, can you blame Deshaun? Probably, right? But Commission's picking Cleveland. I'm picking Cincinnati. Very cool. I've got faith in Burrow, and I think they're gonna keep making it happen. Next up, we've got the Houston Texans at the Dallas Cowboys, and Commish, like I would imagine, picked the Dallas Cowboys, and so am I. I mean, the Cowboys won 57 to something last week. Oh my God, I hold on, I do want to look it up. Yeah, it was just, I mean, the Cowboys are just a really good team. 54 to 19 against the against the Colts. Who I thought Commish was going to end up picking, but he made the wise choice last week and picked Dallas. So, yeah, we're both picking Dallas. I think that's a pretty easy one. You're playing at Dallas. That should be a no-brainer. Next up, we have the Vikings at the Lions. They are playing in Detroit, and Commish is taking the Vikings. And so am I. You know, I wanted to pick Detroit. I really did. But no, I think the Vikings are going to do it. Yeah, they're coming off a win against the Jets, which was a pretty close game. I think it was 27-22. But yeah, I think it's going to be Minnesota's game. And I think Commish has this pegged as the highest scoring game. So I'm assuming that he was also pretty torn. I assume he really wanted to pick the Lions as well. But he just went with the smart play and not the gut play. Which should work out for us. Next up, we've got Jacksonville at Tennessee, and Commish has picked, Jacksonville. They want revenge from that spanking they got last week. Yeah, Jacksonville, I'm assuming this is the reason why Commish wanted to pick Detroit. Jacksonville lost 40-14 to the Detroit Lions last week, and I think Commish is sensing that they want some revenge for that. Now that I'm looking at this, because I'm picking Tennessee, right? I'm picking Tennessee for this. I want to say, did I read something about No, I don't know. I don't want to say Treylon Burks because I don't think that's right. Is it though? Yeah, Treylon Burks. Okay, so he is out. And he's been a pretty solid producer on the Titans the last couple weeks. So maybe that's what Commish is thinking, but he might just be thinking that Jacksonville is out for blood and they're going to take it to the Titans, which they could. They absolutely could. Moving on to Philadelphia at the Giants. Commish has picked Philly, and I think he's absolutely right. I am also picking Philadelphia. Jalen Hurts has been leading that team to some pretty cool things, and I don't see it stopping with the Giants this week. I mean, the Giants have a solid defense. I think it's going to be a tough game for them, but, quarterback to quarterback, obviously Hurts has it over Jones for this, so we're both taking Philadelphia. Last noon game for Sunday would be the Baltimore Ravens at the Steelers. And Commish is taking Baltimore. I really wanted him to pick the Steelers, mostly because I really wanted to pick the Steelers, but I know exactly what Commish is thinking. It's new quarterback syndrome, right? You've got a brand new quarterback coming into the team. Now, granted, Pittsburgh has been winning games recently, right? They've been winning games that me and the Commish have not picked to win. Last week they beat Atlanta, which, okay, I think Commish actually did pick that one. The week before, they beat Indiana, which neither one of us saw that coming. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. I bet he... Yeah, I know exactly why I did it. You got a new quarterback coming in to take the place of Lamar Jackson, and yeah, I think the Steelers are going to be in for a tough showing. And it's a division game, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Steelers and the Ravens are in the same division. I think it's Steelers, Ravens, Cincinnati, and Cleveland, right? I think the Cleveland-Cincinnati game and the Baltimore-Pittsburgh game are both division games. Check me, fellas. Somebody correct me. I want a GD correction section one of these weeks because I'm just tired of being so goddamn perfect. Next up, we've got the 3 o'clock games. First one is Miami at the Chargers, and Commish is picking the Chargers. Interesting. That's good because I picked Miami. We were picking a lot of the same ones here. The Chargers, you got Keenan Allen back. Yeah, I'm assuming he's hoping the quarterback situation is going to step up a little bit over there. And Miami, let me think. Why wouldn't he not have picked Miami? Because it's an away game? I don't know. I do not know. It's their second away game in 2 weeks. They've been on the East Coast for the last 2 weeks. They played San Fran last week, and they're playing LA this week. Maybe they're just they're coast sick, right? East Coast sick. I don't know, but yeah, he's taking the Chargers, and I like it. I am still taking Miami though. After that, we've got Tampa Bay at San Francisco. Kamish is taking, he's taking San Francisco. I am also taking San Francisco. I don't think I need to talk a whole lot more about that. Should be a pretty easy pick. Even with Jimmy going to be out, I still think with the defense, with McCaffrey, I think they're still going to be able to beat out Tampa Bay in a home game. So I think they're good. After that, we've got Carolina at Seattle. And hey, very cool. Kamish is taking Seattle. I am not. I'm going with Carolina. I don't really know why. It's just it's a gut. I was trying to come up with a reason for it earlier, and I had absolutely nothing. I just think they're going to. I mean, no reason. I just wanted a nice little upset. So that's why I'm picking Carolina. They've got absolutely no reason to win, but they're going to. So suck on that. After that, we've got Kansas City at Denver, and Kamish is picking Kansas City. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm also picking Kansas City. I mean, I'll be honest. I would love for Denver to come and beat Kansas City because, the worse and worse this team gets, right? The worse and worse O'Bilson gets, like, the better it's going to be when they finally actually start winning games and coming back and upsetting teams, right? Like, it's like when the Lions went 0-16. As soon as they started winning games, it's like, oh, look at that. Now they're, beating. It doesn't matter what team it is. They're just beating teams. But yeah, so I would love to see Denver come back and take it to Kansas City in Denver. But I don't think going to Mile High Stadium is going to be enough to let them beat Kansas City. So we are both in agreement. And then the last game would be Monday night. That would be New England at Arizona. And looks like Kamish is picking New England, as am I. Arizona has just been, it's been tough for them. They did just come off a bye week, but you've got some hurt players. Moore is having some issues. Murray is having his ups and downs. It's just kind of tough over there in Arizona, which is a bummer because me and Kamish both had very high hopes for them at the beginning of the season. So it's tough, but yeah, we're both going to pick New England. And that is the end of the predictions. I'll recap for you real fast. For where we're at in the season, me and Kamish, let's see. I can never figure out the best way to say this. Of the games we have disagreed on, there we go. Kamish has won 46. I have won 34. So he is beating me by 12 games. Tough stuff. Almost, yeah, that's tough. But we have both picked the winning game 71 times, and we've both picked the wrong. We've both not picked the winning team. 43 times. Wow. I don't know why that was so hard for me to say. Probably because I've been talking to myself for an hour and 3 minutes. Yeah, that's probably it. But I think that's about all I got for you, fellas. Not too much I'm going to get into because that's the end of the podcast. Don't worry. Next week, there will be another voice on this thing. It will not just be me you have to listen to. Hopefully, Kamish feels better way before next week. I'm hoping he's feeling better either now or tomorrow because that's a bummer, man. I don't like it when my buddies are sick. So that being said, that is the episode for this week. Good luck to everybody out there tomorrow and Sunday. This is it, fellas. Last week. Got to make it. Got to make it into the playoffs. you know what? Nobody's here to stop me, so I'm just going to keep going. I will say right now, Raul, 4th place. Chris Alex, 5th place. Mile High is in 6th place. Now, 5th, 6th, and 7th place, right? So that's Chris Alex, Mile High, and Johnny are all at 6 and 7, okay? So that means we're looking at points. And obviously Johnny is at the lower end of that, but only by, less than 10 points? So Johnny's trailing Mile High by, what are we looking at here? 8 points. 8 points. Very doable. Very doable. So this is huge. Not only does Johnny need to win this week against Raul, but he needs to at least score 8 more points than Mile High, which projections say is going to happen on both counts. But, they're projections, so, don't live and die by them. After that, we've got 8th place. Melvin is at 5 and 8. And then Leon as well at 5 and 8 in 9th place. Now, really fast, Chris Alex loses by some effing miracle. If he loses to me, which I really don't think is going to happen this week, but if he does, he will go to 6 and 8, right? Mile High could easily lose this week to Daskell, so he could go to 6 and 8. And then Johnny could very easily lose to Raul, and then he could go to 6 and 8. And that would mean that Melvin and Kamish would both have to win their games. Kamish would have to beat Dan. Tough. And Melvin would have to beat Beetle. Not as tough. That would both put them at 6 and 8, the same with everybody else. So then we would have a tie from 5 to 9. That could happen this week. It's probably not going to, but it could. But even if it does, Kamish would have to outscore by, we're looking at, 100. So that's probably not going to happen. 80. Had to outscore by 80. Melvin, on the other hand, he's got more points than all of these 6 and 7 teams. So if Melvin can get a win this week against Beetle, and at least at least one person loses of those 3 6 and 7s, right? If at least one person loses and Melvin wins, and Melvin keeps the same point buffer from the loser, Melvin can still make playoffs, right? Let's take a Mile High. If Mile High loses and Johnny wins, no. Yeah. No. I don't think that works out. Yeah, see, this one happens when I'm by myself, just staring at the numbers. I have to sit down and actually probably put it on paper to figure it out. I don't know. Melvin, I'm going to say that there's a chance. I mean, there's definitely a chance for him to win, right? If all 3 of those guys I talked about lose and Melvin wins, then yeah, he's definitely in playoffs. I'm just trying to figure out if only one guy lost. I think he'd have to have 2 of those 3 lose, and he'd have to win and still keep that same point buffer, and he'd be in, I think. So yeah, I think unfortunately the only 2 that are mathematically eliminated would be Beetle and the Kamish. And I'm actually kind of glad Leon is not here for this part, because I would hate to look at his face when I say these things. I really would. But it's just how it is. If it makes you feel any better, buddy, with my players and their injury stuff and how inconsistent they've been, I am not as confident going into the playoffs myself. So we'll see. But hey, I'm still hoping for that big win, just like everybody else is. But that being said, fellas, I am going to officially call it. I'm cutting myself off. Good luck to everybody next week, and we will talk to you next. Talk to you next week.